All right, thank you for coming. Today we're going to be talking about getting you and your research back on track during a global pandemic, strategies to support you, your department, and your institution. All right, so we'll skip this part. All right, so my name is Stefanie Sebok-Syer. I'm an instructor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Stanford University.
And I'm Michelle Lynn. I'm a health services researcher at Mount Sinai Health System in New York City.
I'm Maggie Samuels-Kalo, and I'm a health services researcher at MGH in Boston.
And so in terms of what we do, I mean, all of us have our own area of research, and mine is in medical education, mostly how we can use the electronic health record for feedback and assessment. I also look at interdependence, so understanding the relationships and the dynamics between individuals within teams, which is obviously relevant for emergency medicine. We bring this up because research is not just who we are. We also have lives outside of our work and outside of our career, and it's really important to understand where and how much research fits into that. So there I am with my family, my two little kids, Zachary and Samantha, and they're the ones that keep me up every day.
And here is my family and my pandemic baby. Oh, and my research examines how we measure and improve outcomes for emergency care, and my goal is to transform acute care delivery to best meet the needs of those who are unable to access other parts of the healthcare system.
My research focuses on developing interventions to improve the equity of emergency care and to identify and address social needs within the emergency department.
And so this is the wheel of life, and as I was talking about before, there's many facets that that go into our lives, and that are the buckets. There are many things that we need to fill in order to feel satisfied and feel fulfilled. And so if you haven't seen this before, this is the wheel of life. It's commonly used in coaching, so when you have one-on-one coaching, this is an exercise that you might be doing, and usually what they'll do is they'll ask you to say how satisfied are you with each of the facets of your life. And so we're not going to do the wheel of life today, but we're going to do a research or a career version. So if you think of the career slice of that pie that I just showed you, this is breaking it down a little bit more granularly, and we're going to work through that exercise a little bit later.
The focus of this research is going to be trying to think about sort of topic-specific discussions about how you as an individual, your department, and your institution can think about some strategies to overcome some common research challenges. So we're going to present some ideas that we came up with, and then we're going to talk as a group to try and brainstorm some new strategies that you can bring home from this meeting.
So that'll be a later part. But here's some of the ones that we came up with on our own in terms of just preparing for this. You know, what are some things that you can do individually to help get your research back on track? And so some of them are things like just setting work boundaries, right? When are you going to work? What is ideally suited to you? So one of the things that I often tell the medical educators that I work with is to treat your research time just like a clinical shift. Yeah, if you schedule time in your calendar for research, like nothing else should be taking priority over that. Otherwise, your research will never get done. Also, optimizing your research time. So, like, we're all different. If you're a nocturnist and you find that you work better at a particular time of the day, then you should schedule your research time around when you think you'll be most effective. There's nothing worse than being like, yeah, I'll do my research or I'll write a paper, you know, the hour post shift. Like, nobody does that. So really figuring out the times that work best for you. Also maximizing your research relationships. So we put in there like co-everything. There's certainly a level of accountability that comes with that, but just the way that research works and with the ebbs and flows, it's always really helpful to have somebody that you can check in with regularly, and that will help, you know, keep the ball moving, even if it's not as fast as you'd like it to be. Also overcoming your inner critic. So a lot of times individuals will be like, oh, I've been writing, but like it's not perfect and whatnot. And, you know, just as you have teams in the ED, you know, you should have your teams for research as well. And so those should be people that you wouldn't mind, sharing your first ugly draft with, and that's okay, understanding that, my role is to get some things on paper and your role is to help me critically revise this so that it becomes that product that we're all happy with. Also finding a buddy, somebody that you can check in with, because it's really easy to get off track. So I know for myself, I have my colleagues that I check in regularly with, and they'll be like, well, what did you get done? Did you get that thing done that you said you were going to do? Yes, no, why not? And it's just really nice because it's that person that checks in with me that's like, how's life going? How's work going? And lets me know, okay, it's okay that I didn't get this done because I've got these other things done. Or actually it's been a couple months now and you haven't been able to move and get any momentum on, this research project that you say you're really interested in. So what might we want to do differently? It's just somebody that you can have some of those honest conversations with. And then finally, just being kind to yourself. I mean, coming out of a pandemic, I think we've all been through a lot, and recognizing that, maybe you're not going to be moving as fast as you did before in terms of your research career and things like that, and that's okay. It's part of the recovery, and just appreciating what you're able to do when you're able to do it.
And then as we think about moving up in scale to what your department can do, there's some really sort of easy and simple stuff like trying to collate the resources that are available into specific sort of COVID-19 related emails, and then thinking about professional development related sessions. So how can we make sure that the Whisper network is not the only way that people are finding out about information that they can use to make sure that they're optimizing their chances of promotion. So being able to list canceled meetings and talks on your CV, and also being able to acknowledge roles and duties that were assigned during the pandemic in the CV. Can you move to the next slide? But maybe even more importantly, starting to think creatively about how we use our research resources at the departmental level. So can your department support shared research staff so that each individual investigator is not responsible for hiring their own person, and as investigators have ebbs and flows in their funding, they're not necessarily having to hire and fire people. And there's been some really interesting work coming out of Lurie Children's about using the pandemic as an opportunity not only to set up systems for remote enrollment, but then to study those systems for remote enrollment. So you're getting kind of a twofer where you're developing the new system, but also starting to develop scholarly work around studying that new system that increases everyone's academic productivity as well. We need to make sure that we're really providing very careful guidance and support for people's promotion in this challenging environment. And if there's opportunities to provide small seed grants and potentially even restart packages for people whose careers got slowed down or stalled during the pandemic.
And as we all know, I think getting our research back on track is not solely up to ourselves and our individual departments. I think it's an institutional and cultural problem that needs to be solved. And I think a lot of us often feel like we're not empowered to make those changes and a little bit helpless by them. But I think if we start to share practices across institutions, we can, bug our chairs, who can bug our deans, and at least then you have a reference point for saying oh, hey, this concept exists, it may be helpful, and I think from there you get much more structural and sustainable change, in addition to the individual and departmental factors that we're working on. So, I think, modifying or potentially extending promotion criteria, this is a controversial one because it's been shown to hurt women more than it potentially helps them, because then they sort of feel like they have more time, and then boom, they don't. But certainly modifying the promotion criteria so that women don't fall off of the track altogether is starting to show some benefit. Also, bridge funding. There are increasingly programs to support people with increased caregiving responsibilities. Foundations like the Doris Duke Foundation have partnered with academic institutions to offer these types of grants, and they can be really critical, for all sorts of caregiving scenarios, and they're very flexible in the types of definitions they have with respect to those. And all of us know that caregiving has been a special challenge during COVID. And then also supplemental and targeted funding. So the NIH actually offers supplemental funding for those experiencing increased needs related to caregiving. And so I think there are supplements of about 50,000, but it depends on the institute. You just have to justify why it was that your caregiving required additional expenses, and they can't necessarily fund your salary, but they could fund your research team, more data. It could even be tangential to your parent grant. It could fund a co-investigator to keep the research going while you're tied up with other things. So that's actually relatively new, we're trying to spread the word about that. And then ESI extensions. So there's the ones that are already built in for an early stage investigator extensions, I should clarify, for people who are going for their first independent research award. It's typically 10 years out of your terminal degree, or for clinician investigators, your residency training. But that automatically gets extended 1 year for childbirth, but they're also allowing additional exceptions for time away from research related to COVID. And so that's evaluated on a case-to-case basis, but I've actually started to gather a little compendium of how it is folks can go about requesting that. They basically want a detailed spreadsheet of time periods and amount of effort that you are required to reduce your effort for research, so that they can proportionately give you an extension. The last couple institutional level resources I'll mention are faculty development and coaching. Some institutions have actually partnered with coaches who they have a relationship with, and may be able to offer discounted, occasionally free coaching, and they're often like application only, like mid-career type restart and like junior faculty level type things. Some institutions have also partnered with outside entities like the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity that runs a lot of sort of intensive programs around writing programs and peer support. And so if a lot of institutions have a discount, so if that's not something you're already aware of, I encourage you to look into that. And then I guess the last couple things I'll mention are variable work schedules. For those of us who do research, it's been helpful to do part of it at home and part of it in the office. And I think as we continue to figure out what the new norm is going to look like, having institutions be supportive and know that what works for one person is not going to necessarily work for everyone. And then just general supporting and offloading options, being able to, especially in our field, work shifts at a certain time or later is a potential solution as well.
So there is our contact information. Thank you for coming. Really, thank you for coming. There's a QR code there, like I said, if you want to fill out for this session, and we're just going to do some of the activity stuff now.